here, aka M3 Black Shadow, and I am in this random parking lot with my 2003 BMW M5 because today we're going to do a full review. I promised you guys that we would do an overview of the M3 and the M5. Today I'm going to walk you guys through the M5, everything I've done to it, the mods, and I'll also give it my thoughts. Alright, so for those of you guys who follow me on Instagram, you know that I have a 2004 BMW M3 convertible E46, and that car is incredible. That car really is what got me into the car scene. And so that car really is what built out my Instagram channel and kind of got me to where I am today. And I love that car and I drive it all the time. A lot of people ask me to compare that car to this car, and it's so hard to do, but we're gonna save that for another video. But the way that I fell in love with this car was I was actually part of a small car club in Brooklyn back when I lived in New York City, and I went to a meet and somebody pulled in with an E39 M5. And I really didn't think that much of it at first because it's kind of discreet. It's very beautiful, but it's kind of discreet. And then we pulled out of the parking lot, and once we got onto the highway, oh my God, his was straight piped and my jaw dropped. It sounded so good. And that's when I really realized how special this car is. And so about, I don't know, a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I kind of set my eyes out on the E39 M5, and took me about a month or so of looking, and I found one locally and wound up picking this one up back in September. When I first got it, it was well kept. It had 69,000 miles. The paint was in good condition. For the most part, everything was in good condition, but it was just very stock. It had the stock exhaust, it had the stock everything. And if you've ever heard an E39 M5 with the stock exhaust, you probably haven't, because you can't. It has no sound. And so when I first picked up the car, I was actually kind of disappointed, to be honest. I was like, you know, it's kind of quiet, it's kind of farty, you know, it's got wood trim inside, and you know, I really was a little bit sad at first, and then I realized that the tire inflation was low. I realized that it had the stock exhaust, and that really, like, that quiets things down a lot. And that's when I came to the realization that this car was designed for luxury over sport. So in other words, the M3 is a sports car. It's nimble, it's loud, it throws you around, it's a little bit rough riding, right? They built this car to be luxurious first and sporty second. However, that doesn't mean it's not sporty. In fact, the E39 M5 was faster around the Nuremberg Ring than the M3 by a very small margin, but it was faster. The E46 M3 CSL beat the M5 around the track, but the stock coupe M3, this thing had it. And that's because it has an S62 4.9 liter V8, and this thing absolutely screams. Let's walk around the car. I'm going to talk about what I've done to it and what I plan to do to it. So here is the glorious V8 S62 that came with this car, and you can see I have done very, very little underneath here. This motor is a piece of art. It's absolutely beautiful and performs incredibly well, and very little needs to be done to it. So everything under here that you can see is stock, except for I did Turner Motorsport stainless steel brake lines in the E39 M5. There are actually two stainless steel brake lines underneath here behind the ABS unit. So everything else is stock. You can actually see over here, it says BMW M Power, and it's inlaid in carbon fiber, and this is actually stock from the factory with the M logo right here. This is the intake plenum. There are actually little velocity stacks underneath which pull that air in, and then we've got our dual intakes right here, and they really got this perfect from the factory. Dynan makes an intake kit which might add like 5-6 horsepower, but other than that, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. And that Dynan kit is like $1,200, so $1,200 for 5-6 horsepower, probably isn't really worth it. The intakes actually come in down here by the grill, and then they pull up through the air filters and into the plenum. A fun fact about the E39 M5 that I only learned maybe a week or two ago is that this has a dual washer system. So there's actually a second washer tank right there, and you click the button on the side of the windshield wiper stock, and it like apparently keeps the windshield clean as if it's raining. I don't know. Super, super weird and super German, super BMW, over-engineering the simplest thing ever. But yeah, under here, everything is stock, and you can see it looks perfect. I do plan on getting a tune from Frank Smith, Tuning Tech Frank Smith, down in Crofton, Maryland. He does remote tunes. You can check him out. If you're in Maryland, definitely check him out for a custom dyno tune. Have not done that yet, but I do plan to do that. Moving a little bit further up, you can see there's actually, I just zip tied this in here. I don't think it works, but this is a K40 laser jammer. It actually came with the car, and it was installed into the license plate bracket. And when I moved it, I think I frayed the wire. So pretty sure it doesn't work, but it does have a built-in radar system, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. I completely redid the headlights. So these are brand new lenses made by DJ Auto, got them on eBay. And then I did the Miramoto Evo XR 2.0 clear lenses, and that was a huge project because in 2002 they changed the headlight design from a special glue that you could actually just throw in the oven and it would come apart, and then in 2002 they changed that to this virtually unbreakable seal. So I had to take a Dremel and cut the whole lens off. It took days and it was expensive because I broke stuff in the process and had to get new parts. But it looks absolutely incredible. Doubles the light output just through these clear lenses alone without anything else. Moving over to the corner light, you can see that there's no amber look in there, and that is because I've got V-Slick chrome, I think they're called ghost bulbs or invisible bulbs. So they're made out of, they've got like a chrome coating on top so you can't see the amber, but they do light up amber. Moving a little bit further down, you can actually see these metal circles. And so what these are is actually brake vents. So if you look through, you can actually see that it goes all the way to right behind the brake caliper for further brake cooling. The weird thing with the M5 is that it actually has brake ducts from the factory, but this is completely blocked off. It's like they built something and then completely blocked it off and defeated the purpose. Why they did that? No idea. But I reopened it using ECS tuning brake ducts. These things, it's completely OEM factory, and then they just modify them with these brake ducts in them, and it looks really good, holds up really well. And then underneath, I actually have a Turner Motorsport skid plate, which replaces the crappy aluminum brake ducts that came with the car with new durable brake ducts, which double to also support the skid plates. So that's right behind, and then it feeds and pushes air right through to the brakes, providing ongoing cooling. All right, moving along to the side of the car, you can see how flush the wheels are with the body lines, and that is because of ECS tuning spacers. I've got 15mm spacers on the front, 10mm spacers on the back. I've also got Turner Motorsport wheel studs all around, and Turner Motorsport stainless steel brake lines. As I had mentioned earlier in the video, I am very thankful to Turner Motorsport. Please go on their website, check them out. All their products are incredible, and they've been so kind to send me some really great parts, and I always am jumping when I get that box in the mail because everything I put on my car that's made by Turner is incredible. Also, you can see down here, this is not the stock side marker lens, and that is because USR Auto provided me with LED side marker lights, and they're bright and they are discreet and they just look really good. It's, you know, the details sometimes that make a really big difference. Also, you'll probably notice how clean the car is. That is because it is ceramic coated with Adams polishes. Everything that they make is absolutely incredible. They've been a sponsor of mine for a year or so now, and I'm so thankful for everything that they do for me. I would highly recommend getting on their website, just getting a starter kit, just so you can kind of test out their products and see for yourself how incredible it is. I have a discount code, and I'll link that in the description below. All right, moving inside the car, you can see it actually has the same steering wheel as the E46 M3. Earlier models of the E39 M5 had a slightly different steering wheel, and then in 2002, I believe, when they did the facelift, they actually changed it to the same steering wheel as the M3. I absolutely love this steering wheel. I love the way it looks. I think it's actually one of the best steering wheels that BMW has ever put in a car. Not too busy, not too crazy. It's just absolutely perfect in my opinion. Also, USR Auto provided me with aluminum pedals, and they feel absolutely great. Made a huge difference in just the visuals and the appearance of the car. Additionally, I have a Turner Motorsport short shift kit, as well as their shift bushing and their carrier bushings, and everything is just absolutely super tight. Feels really good. It's not like too difficult to shift, but it is really crisp and very like racy, sporty feel to it. There's no play at all in the shifter. It feels so good. I actually drove an F80 M3 not that long ago, and the one thing that like stood out to me, it was a manual, was that there was no play in the shifter at all, like zero. And this is very close to that. Just by getting that Turner Motorsport short shift kit made a huge difference. Also, I've got Avon USA, the Avon Avant 4, which really brings this car up to the modern era in terms of technology. I've got a front-facing dash cam, which looks very discreet. Put it right at the top of the windshield, and you can't really even tell that it's there, and it's filming all the time. It's dual-facing, so I've got a backup camera too. Highly recommend. Bluetooth, it's got everything, all the goodies. I got Waze on here. It's basically like an Android tablet almost, and it's got that stock look with all the stock buttons. Absolutely amazing. You can also see that it has wood trim. When I first got the car, I thought that this looked so bad and like so farty, but now that time has gone by and I've really come to appreciate this car for what it is, like a luxury sports sedan, I really come to appreciate it, and I don't know if I'm gonna change it. I've considered going like a forged carbon fiber look, just because like nobody does that, especially in an E39 M5. But the jury's still out on that one. Not sure if I'm going to actually do that. I may move to a ZHP light up shifter, because I did that on the M3 and it looks really good. But other than that, not too much that I want to change up front. However, it does have a lot of pixels out in the cluster. This is something that happens with the E39 M5s, actually just all the E39s in general. And I'm gonna have to send this out to get the pixels. It's just like a ribbon cable back there that starts to come loose over time. The connections come loose. So I'm gonna have that redone at some point. And then I've also got a built-in Valentine 1 radar detector. It's actually built right into the headliner, and it's got the display in the mirror. The radar detector sits in the back shelf. You can't even see it. It's in like an enclosed Alcantara case, and it just bings and bobs all the time. It's actually pretty annoying. Also, up front, I've got my Badlands HPE exhaust cutout switch. It's right next to the instrument cluster, and I can open and close the valves with a click of a button. I've also got a remote for that as well. One thing that is just absolutely so silly with this car is these really lame cup holders. It's so funny because on I believe it's the E55 AMG by Mercedes, they have these crazy over-engineered cup holders, and that's a car of the same era, and the BMW cup holders are just absolutely like totally junk. It's hilarious, totally an afterthought. I also put a wireless charger in here, so if I put my phone in there, I have to remove the case because I need to like probably shave some plastic off the bottom, but if I drop the phone into the center console with no case on, the phone will actually charge. Moving into the trunk, you can see it has WeatherTech rubber mats. This came with the car, as well as the BMW cargo net. Other than that, there's not much going on. We've got DSP, so the M5 comes with an upgraded sound system. I believe all the M5s have the upgraded sound system. Not 100% sure, but it comes with dual subwoofers, so it sounds really good. Back there is the DVD for the navigation system. However, that's disconnected since I have the Avant 4, which just runs on data and internet. And then back here is just another compartment for just the fuse box. However, the Euro version actually has a cubby, a plastic cubby in here, which I've considered upgrading to. Maybe at some point. It's like $100, so not that much money, and could be like a nice addition, so I can put some more stuff back there from rolling around. All right, so moving to the back of the E39 M5, you can see there's not that much that's remarkable back here. This is a post-facelift model. It's a 2003, so it's the last year that BMW made the M5, the E39 chassis M5. And so you can see it actually has LED tail lights, which look 1,000 times better than the halogen ones on the pre-facelift model, in my opinion. And so I've got the Avant 4 backup camera right here, which doubles as a dual DVR. It records out the back and the front, as I had mentioned earlier. And I've got my Supersprint exhaust, full Supersprint headers all the way back. And then I've got a Rogue Engineering X pipe in there, along with Badlands HPE exhaust cutouts, as I had alluded to before. So I can click a button and then it gets really loud and you can hear that V8. Speaking of which, shall we listen? Okay, let's talk about driving the M5. So the E39 M5 is really an absolute pleasure to drive. I love driving this car. And that is because BMW has done such an incredible job of balancing that crazy power and sports car mentality with something that you can also take your family around in, and that is luxurious and quiet on the highway. And I just drove into a random dead end, so we're gonna turn around here, as people probably call the police on me. Anyway, you can probably hear how quiet the car is right now, and that is because of the Badlands HPE cutouts that I have installed. It really gives me the best of both worlds, because I can make it very loud when I want to, or I could keep it quiet like it is now. So we're turning onto a busier road here, so you'll be able to hear the difference. So right now, the exhaust flaps are closed. However, I just opened it. You can hear the difference. It's wild. So much louder, and God, the V8 sounds so good. Speaking of V8, let's talk power numbers, because I didn't mention them before. So the E39 M5 from the factory has 400 horsepower measured at the crank, and I believe around 365 pound-feet of torque. I have installed a full Supersprint exhaust, as I had mentioned earlier, and I also installed Supersprint headers. Now, interesting fact about the M5, the stock headers are actually shared with the 540. So the stock headers on the E39 M5 are incredibly restrictive. So just by changing out those headers to a more freer flowing design made a massive difference in acceleration. I made a whole video on it. I'll link that in the description below, so you can just hear my thoughts on the Supersprint system and how much of a crazy power increase the car got as a result. Let's talk about some of the things that I love about this car, and let's talk about some of the things that I somewhat dislike. First of all, it's very discreet. So the M5 and the regular 5 Series E39 look very similar. There are only some subtle differences. There's an M5 badge on the side of the door molding, and the M5 badge in the back, the quad exhaust, and then the mirrors look different. Aside from that, the 540, the 525 look very similar to the M5. And I love that. I love how this car is discreet, But the second you get on the gas, woo, everybody knows that this thing is something special. It's amazing because the E46 M3 draws so much attention just by the way it looks, whereas this thing really just draws attention by the way it sounds. Oh my God, those crackles. So many people are like, oh, I hate burble tunes. I don't have a burble tune. I actually don't have any tune on this car at all. And just that growly V8, if you just get the right exhaust setup, it just crackles and pops. And you listen to the new turbocharged cars, and it's all like fake burbling and popping, and this is just all naturally aspirated fun. Oh my gosh. I want you guys to hear the difference between the valves being open and the valves being closed. So right now the valves are open. You hear that? Gone. Just close the valves. Unbelievable the difference. So quiet. Now, that's open. Difference is wild. Woo! Let's talk handling. So this car handles incredibly well. The suspension is a little bit softer just because it's designed for comfort, but this thing can take a turn like you would not believe. It is absolutely amazing how hard you can turn. Look at this. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But there is a good amount of body roll, so when you're turning, you're like, oh, but the thing just does not stop with the grip. It just grabs onto the road, and it's like it's driving on rails. Another really fun thing about the M5, not all of them have it, but this has a rear sunshade, as you can see, and it kind of makes me feel like James Bond. Let's talk about some of the things that I dislike about this car. The first thing is depreciation. The E39 M5 is a very sought after car. And the thing that is a little bit not fun about driving this car is seeing the miles go up and knowing that as the miles go up, you're basically losing money. There's a little bit of a guilt factor with driving this car. So I would say if you're looking to buy an E39 M5, these cars are known to be bulletproof if they're well maintained. So go for a higher mileage car if you really want to drive it and enjoy it, or maybe even consider getting a salvage title car if you really know that it's been well sorted. So another thing that is, oh, we're going over an underpass here, hold on. Other things, so gas mileage. If you're getting this car for the gas mileage, you're just getting the wrong car. Nobody who gets an M5 cares about gas mileage. Let's face it. This car gets, I'm averaging 10.9 miles per gallon right now. So you're looking at like 12, 13 miles per gallon. If you're, around town, and maybe on the highway, you're looking at 20, if you're lucky. If you're really not giving gas and you're just kind of cruise control on, maybe you'll get 20 miles per gallon. So that is one of the downsides. Okay, other things include some of the known issues. The E39 M5 is known to burn oil. I've been very fortunate. This car does not burn oil, but many E39 owners have to have a quart of oil in the trunk and be topping it off and checking the oil between fills. The other known issue are timing chain guides. The timing chains are basically guided by these like plastic guides, and over time the plastic guides are known for disintegrating and falling apart, and you'll find pieces of plastic in your oil pan, and that is a massive job to tackle. Another known issue is carbon buildup. It seems to affect the earlier models of the E39 pre-facelift a little bit more because they did a couple things to address that in the later model cars. But they are known for having carbon buildup and it affecting I believe the air pump for the catalytic converters. It's not the end of the world, but it will throw a service light if the carbon builds up to a certain point. There are just some little things. So I had mentioned earlier the pixels in the instrument cluster that go out. Also, the rear view mirror is auto dimming, and on the M3 and the M5, the auto dimming liquid is known to leak, and you'll actually see the liquid on the outside of the mirror. It's not that expensive, but as I showed you guys before, I have a built-in radar detector, and the display is in the mirror, so it's a few $100s to get that replaced. Vanos, so the Vanos problems also plagued the E46 as well, but in this car, it's not so much of Vanos failure, it's more of Vanos noise. So they call it Vanos rattle, and a lot of times, like when you start the car, it'll make like a weird rattling noise. And getting the Vanos replaced in this car is very, very expensive. I was fortunate, and the previous owner took care of the Vanos in the car. I saw the service record for it, and it was over $4,000. So that brings me to another downside of this car, and this would affect other people more than it affects me. And that is the fact that this car is very expensive to maintain and to repair. In the E39 M5 group on Facebook, you hear in all the comments, people are always talking about the M tax. So everything on this car, from parts to labor, is always very, very inflated. So if you're going to get this car, understand that you are going to have big bills if you bring it in for service. I do all the work on my cars myself, and it is really the only way that I'm able to afford having not just one but two M cars. Oh my God. I just absolutely love the Turner Motorsport short shift kit. It just makes the shift so crisp. Feels great. I am gonna have to replace my clutch soon. It's starting to slip a little bit, which really won't be fun. Might be a project I try and tackle myself. We shall see. So this thing really just shines on the highway. It just pulls and pulls and pulls and does not stop pulling. And it's, you know, the M3 is very low on torque compared to this car. So going back and forth is just a very interesting difference. Really, this car is a highway monster. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining me. I absolutely love the E39 M5. I truly believe it is one of the best cars ever made. Thank you guys so much for joining me, watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to my channel. We got more great stuff coming. And follow me on Instagram if you get the chance. Till next time. Down here you can see USR Auto provided some stainless steel, or I'm sorry, aluminum. USR Auto provided aluminum brake pedals. USR Auto provided. Also, if you look down, you can see. Also, USR Auto provided aluminum brake. Also, USR Auto provided me with aluminum pedals, and they feel absolutely great. Made a huge difference in just the visuals and the appearance of the car.